Wakanda Forever was a good movie. I'm surprised it's not regarded in a better light. I think the movie did a good job of giving Shuri an arc and giving Namor some development as well. Namor is an empathetic villain.
See, me and this guy, we don't see eye to eye. Wakanda Forever was trash. What's up, yo? Welcome to another episode of Vidwon Reacts. And I'm reacting to this video called The Failure of the MCU Phase 4 3 years later. So, to me, everything was great with the MCU until Phase 4 came around. And even with the WandaVision and, a couple of the other things, it was fairly okay. But the introduction of the multiverse kind of like made everything so small from what we were watching before. You understand? Like what we were watching before is like, oh, it's nothing. Like for instance, in one of the Loki Loki series, you see this Infinity Stones inside a drawer. Like what? So all this shit we watched before was about power and all this shit, and these dudes in the TVA they're just playing with it. So that'll make you like ultimately powerful. But anyway, let's get into this video and we'll chat it out in between.
She was well fleshed out, she was given a funny personality, and her banter with Loki was great. I think the show did a great job of showing us how traumatizing and unfair these variants are treated, and it gets us to empathize with Sylvie. So what this show did fantastic was the execution of the concept. But with that being said, I hate the concept of this show with a burning passion. I have a passionate hatred of
The reason why I skipped this video all the way to this right here is because I believe this was like the line. When they crossed it, it opened up good storylines, but it also made everything else a lot smaller.
both the multiverse and the TVA. Storytelling in a multiverse is incredibly hard to do, and it often results in an unhealthy amount of plot holes. When a multiverse is introduced, it just makes the current universe feel so small, and the notion of infinite universes really bothers me. It just takes away from the stakes of a story if in the back of your mind you know that in some other universe, absolutely nothing will be affected. You don't like your universe? Well, travel to a
Exactly. Like it's like endless. You understand what I'm saying? Like, does the story really matter? 'Cause I could just go to another universe.
different one where everything is better. Again, it takes away from the consequences. Moving on to the TVA, I hate this concept even more, because in reality, the TVA has to be the most powerful organization that has ever existed. They can literally eliminate people with a simple stick and remove timelines. The scene where the dude opens up the drawers and there's infinity stones chilling inside of it.
That's what I'm saying. Look, like they could erase timelines. In other words, they could just jump anywhere, erase timeline, erase beings, everything. And then look at the Infinity Stones. That's crazy. They're just there. A bunch of them too. Clones of each.
Pissed me off. For 3 phases of the MCU, the Infinity Stones were built up to be the most powerful items in the universe. But now, only a few shows later, the Infinity Stones are mute compared to the power of the TVA. I hate when something is treated as the most powerful thing in the universe, only for it to not be that because the story needs higher stakes than what came before. So because I hate the concept of this show so
Yeah, when they do that, it just makes the backstory seem like so small. And then you're like, oh man, I'm so good, but you cheated me out of it. You understand? It's like watching a whole movie. Then at the end of the movie, the guy wakes up. Boom. I'm in a dream. It was all a dream. Crazy.
My enjoyment significantly, but I cannot deny that the character is a mixed bag for me. The season scored a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 90% audience score. On
That was
IMDb,
good. It was good to me. I don't know. You
2
must
out
have
of
not
10.
liked it.
Loki Season 1 was obviously succeeded with Loki Season 2. That may seem like an obvious thing, but none of the other shows in Phase 4 besides What If have gotten a Season 2.
Nah, cause Loki did good.
After Season 2, the only
Yo, not for nothing. Loki was well written. You know that.
things to really come out of this show were the TVA, which was featured in Deadpool and Wolverine, and also Kang showing up in Ant-Man 3. But the entire Kang storyline was scrapped after that, so really this show has gone nowhere. Loki will, however, appear in Avengers Doomsday. Loki Season 1 did not have any post-credit scene of any consequence, so nothing to add to the tally. Black Widow is
was dope.
not a good movie. Easily the biggest problem with this movie is how out of place it is. I remember back during the Phase 3 days how everyone was begging for a Black Widow movie. Then she died, and after that they decided to give her her own movie. The movie takes place right after Civil War, and that's uninteresting. The movie also just feels like they wanted to introduce Yelena and also give Natasha her own movie, so they decided to tell a mediocre story. I just have no interest in what Natasha was up to between Infinity War and Civil War, so adding a story here has almost no stakes and really doesn't change the story of the Black Widow character. Now,
I like the villain of this story, but the only thing I don't like is that they changed the Taskmaster. Once again, like I said in my previous video, I don't like when they do that. They change genders or race to comply with the everyday politics. You understand? They should have left it at a dude. And then that backstory that they put on that girl, that shit was horrible.
that aside, I do at least like the characters in this movie. Natasha and her adoptive parents were fine, but Yelena is the clear highlight. She has this typical little sister personality, and I quite like that. The main villain was incredibly boring, but the fact that he's able to use pheromones to control people is really dumb. And that ties into one of my other big problems with this movie. The Black Widows were all under control because of some stupid ass serum that can be reversed with another gas. There is nothing that a story could do worse than remove all agency from characters. This movie had the potential to tell a really dark and moving story. I absolutely loved the opening credits that highlighted the traumas of human trafficking. It was a great scene.
Like Taskmaster, the outfit was dope.
But it turns out later on it wasn't brainwashing that was keeping all these girls as Black Widows, it was some stupid serum. This way, instead of Natasha actually having to put in an effort into saving the Black Widows, she just needs to spray them with some gas. I hate that, and it derailed the movie. Black Widow scored a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes along with a 91% audience score. On IMDb, the movie scored a 6.6 out of 10. Black Widow grossed $379 million at the box office. Keep in mind, this movie was released during the height of COVID, and it also had a straight to Disney Plus release while it was in theaters. Phase 4 of the MCU got off to a decent start, because Black Widow has a lasting legacy. Yelena has appeared in a handful of projects since, and is going to be one of the main characters of Avengers.
Exactly. So, it was alright.
Doomsday. Since Black Widow was just about introducing Yelena, that's all that really matters. Red Guardian appeared in Thunderbolts as well and will be in Avengers Doomsday. Taskmaster was famously killed off in the beginning of Thunderbolts, so she was wasted. But overall, this movie did set up the future. The one post-credit scene in this movie is a tease of Yelena going after Hawkeye, and obviously this happened in the Hawkeye show, so the phase gets a point here. Shang-Chi is an awesome movie. I feel like of all the Phase 4 MCU movies, this one is the one that's talked about the least, but I want to give it the credit it deserves. So Shang-Chi tells the story of a family who copes with trauma in different ways.
The Shang-Chi movie, I loved it. from beginning to the end. The only thing I didn't like was the fact that the rings are bracelets. Why are you gonna do that to the rings? You understand what I'm saying? The Mandarin's rings.
When
They
the
were
mother
rings.
of a family is murdered, the three remaining members of said family all cope in different ways. Wen Wu, who is also the Mandarin, is changed when he meets Shang-Chi's mother. He gives up the rings because he said he's found something worth growing old for, which is a unique approach for a Marvel villain. When she dies, he goes on a revenge quest. He turns into a bad father and only sees his family as potential weapons. The way Wen Wu coped with trauma was by becoming a tyrannical leader, and I love his characterization. Zhao Ling handles trauma very differently than the way her brother does. Because Zhao Ling was neglected by her father after the death of her mother, she has a kind of different hatred for her father than Shang-Chi does. Instead of trying to distance herself from her father as much as possible, she wanted to prove to him that she could carve out her own
Nah, it was dope. The movie was dope. I like the storyline and everything. And she was funny over there. She's always funny.
path and create an empire just as powerful. Zhao Ling isn't driven by revenge, but by resentment. She resented her father so much that she created her own criminal underground fighting ring. Now Shang-Chi takes a completely different path than his sister and father. Instead of getting deeper involved with criminals, he moves to the other side of the planet and wants to live a life that resembles nothing from his past. Shang-Chi is driven by two things in this movie: hatred and fear. He has hatred for his father so much that he removed himself completely from anything that resembles his previous life, and he fears he will one day become his father. But at the end of the movie, he doesn't become his father. He spares him. In a way, all three of these main characters go on an arc, and that's the reason why I love this movie. Now, besides the characters, the action in this movie was fantastic. This movie may have some of the best fist
Good. That's because a lot of the dudes, they were good at martial arts. And whoever the coordinator, the fighting coordinator was, it was great. Awesome. Fast movement, the throws, the blow ups, everything was on time. Perfect.
fighting in the MCU. The only part of the movie that kinda dragged it down for me was the final fight against the dragon. It kind of felt like MCU Phase 1 where they needed something major to defeat in the end. But overall, this movie has fantastic character work, even better action, and is just an awesome movie. Shang-Chi scored a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 98% audience score.
Oh.
That's insane. On IMDb, the movie scored a 7.3 out of 10. Shang-Chi ended up grossing $432 million
They made
at
money.
the box office. The story of Shang-Chi has unfortunately not continued in any way. None of the characters in this movie have yet to show up
But for some reason, I heard through the grapevine that they got a part 2 coming up.
again. The only hope for Shang-Chi is that he is confirmed to appear in the next Avengers movie. Now, Shang-Chi has two post-credit scenes, one potentially hinting at the 10 rings being related to Kang the Conqueror, and one with Zhao Ling building her empire. Neither have been followed up yet, so no points for Shang-Chi. Hot take alert, I think Eternals is one of the most underrated comic book movies I have ever seen. I usually have a good understanding of when a movie or show will be loved or hated, but with this movie, I cannot understand why so many people not only dislike this movie, but think it's one of the worst MCU movies. Now, is the movie perfect? No, but I loved so much of it. What really makes this movie hit home for me is that the movie is
I'm gonna keep it 100. To me, the best thing about this movie was the fight scenes. The fight scenes was dope. All the powers being used at the same time, especially at the end when they start fighting all of them. Spoilers.
trying to be something new for Marvel. This movie not only tries to tell a story, but it genuinely tries to ask interesting questions and challenge the audience. So the basic premise of this movie is that a celestial will destroy Earth, but in doing so will move on and create new life. Do the Eternals, who like Earth, have the right to make this call and destroy the Celestial? This moral debate is what drives the movie and causes the main conflict of the story. Usually I hate stories where the entire world is at stake, but for some reason here it really worked for me. Also, for a movie with a bunch of different characters, they were all fleshed out and you understood who they were and why they were making certain decisions.
Yeah, the character line was good. You know, to me, it was more about the action.
Eternals did everything I wanted in a comic book movie and more. My last main point, this movie is beautiful. This might be the best looking Marvel movie and it's not even close. More movies should take notes from the Eternals. I could go on for much longer about why I loved this movie, but for the sake of this video, those are the main reasons why. Eternals scored a pathetically low 44% on
Wow.
Rotten Tomatoes along with a 77% audience score. On IMDb, the movie scored a 6.2 out of 10.
Wow.
Eternals grossed just $402 million at
They
the box
lost money
office.
there.
Eternals may be the biggest case of an MCU story being lost in purgatory. With the exception of Tiamut the Dead Celestial being in Captain America Brave New World, nothing else from this movie has reappeared anywhere else. No characters have come back, and none of the lore has stayed relevant. To make matters even worse, none of these characters are slated to appear in Avengers Doomsday. Eternals had two post-credit scenes. One showed Harry Styles, who never showed up again, and another, I think, teased Blade, which also has yet to come out. So Eternals, without question, gets 0 out of 2 points for its post.
Nah, you see um that post scene? I think that was supposed to be Black Knight from the Avengers because of the sword. You know what I'm saying? But Black Knight, I mean, he has something to do with Blade and everything, but I think that was Black Knight.
Credit scenes. Hawkeye is awesome. I really liked this season, and it is criminally underrated. The show represents everything that I
okay.
like in a basic Marvel story. It's fun, it has good characters, and it tells a story where the characters change. Hawkeye is a show all about heroes and what it means to be a hero. Clint begins the story rejecting his status as a hero because of all his actions he committed when he was the Ronin. People thank him for his service, and he kinda just ignores it all. Meanwhile, he meets Kate, who is someone who idolizes Clint. She's pretty much been inspired by him her whole life, so much so that she became a master archer herself. Throughout this story, Clint faces the consequences of his actions as
The thing that it was that they were like more basing it on her to try to build like a young Avengers shit, you know, because they knew they were coming with the, the Miss Marvel and all that other shit. You understand?
Ronin. If you have followed my channel for a while now, you would know I love it when characters face the consequences of their actions. So Clint has yet to face a bunch of different people, including Maya Lopez and Yelena. Clint goes on an arc in this show about discovering that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's okay to be proud of being a hero. And the person who helps him with this the most is, of course, Kate. I loved Kate Bishop. The show gives her depth and wisely begins with her origin story. Her father was killed during the Battle of New York, and she uses that motivation to train. The basis of Kate's character is that she's kind of a goof who has major trust issues. Throughout the show, she shows Clint how much she has inspired people, including herself. And because of that, Clint overcomes his demons from his time as the Ronin and is able to move on with his life. This show also has some great supporting characters. I liked the stepfather quite a bit. Yelena is always a
He's supposed to be somebody. I forgot it was. Damn. I think the marksman. He's supposed to be the marksman. And Yolena comes out and it's all right. It was all right.
character to watch. I don't really have anything bad to say about this show except for the portrayal of Kingpin. It's just so weird seeing him in this show, and then what happens here is completely ignored afterwards. But Hawkeye is a great show and it deserves more props. Hawkeye scored a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes along with an 88% audience score. The season also scored a 7.4 on IMDb. Now, unfortunately, there has been close to no follow-up for Hawkeye of any kind. There were discussions about a season 2, but Jeremy Renner was insulted by the offer. Since the show was released, we have only seen Kate Bishop once in a cameo scene in The Marvels. Funny enough, the biggest continuation of the show was Maya Lopez getting her own show with Echo. And
Oh my God. Whoever saw this show, I know you felt like you wasted your time. Echo, That's what it was. Echo. It was horrible. The show was horrible. Like it had no meaning. They were trying to make a character, and I'm telling you, what they were trying to do was like build the Young Avengers thing, but that shit wasn't happening. Not with this chick. That shit was horrible. She ain't like she had one-liners. That whole attitude. Look at her face. That's how the whole show was. That if it wasn't for the King thing, that show would have been trash, like super trash. It was trash already.
That Clint Barton is reported to not be in Avengers Doomsday, and there are only unconfirmed reports that Kate Bishop will be in the movie, so it doesn't look like there will be a serious continuation of this story. Besides one goofy scene, there is no post-credit scene that teases anything. Spider-Man No Way Home is kind of the perfect Spider-Man movie for me. Apparently people argue this movie hasn't aged well, but I still really enjoy it. Now, as you guys know, I absolutely loathe the multiverse. I think it is a dumbass concept, and I hate that this is the direction the MCU is going in. But a movie like this handles it as well as it could possibly be. Now granted, this movie does have the advantage of having 7 Spider-Man movies to cherry pick from, but it does it so well. Now Goldman, you're just falling for nostalgia. Not really. I'm not a big Spider-Man fan. I like most of the older movies, but not all of them. So why did I like this movie so much? Well,
No, because the reason I like this movie was because they were all Spider-Man, but they were so different from each other. You understand? One was wise, one was like semi-wise, but a comedian, and then the other one was just a kid. You understand?
me, this movie exemplifies everything I do like about Spider-Man. Spider-Man to me is all about making sacrifices for the greater good. Spider-Man will always be willing to get beaten up and hurt if it means others will be safe. At the end of this movie, when he makes the decision to have everyone forget about him so they could be safe, that to me was textbook Spider-Man. Everyone he knows will forget him. He will have absolutely no relationships, but he's willing to do it for the greater good, and that's awesome. Another aspect of this movie that was great was how they utilized the other 2 Spider-Man. They used what they learned in their movies to guide Tom Holland's character in his quest. That was the best way to utilize Tobey and Andrew. Now, the only thing I didn't really like was how the villains could be cured of their evilness by simply being injected with something. That was kind of dumb. I hated it in
Because it was more like a kid movie, you know.
Black Widow, and I hate it here. Again, it takes away agency from characters if their issues could be solved by sniffing some gas. But that's really my only problem. Everything else I really liked. Spider-Man No Way Home scored a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 97% audience score. On IMDb, the movie scored an 8.2 out of 10. The movie grossed an incredible $1.9 billion at the box office. Now, funny enough, there hasn't
That's because of the other 2 Spider-Mans. Everybody wanted to see that.
been a continuation of this story yet, but I feel like Spider-Man gets a bit of a pass because Sony owns it. But regardless, Spider-Man Brand New Day does come out next year, and it will of course feature Tom Holland as Peter Parker. The only post-credit scene of consequence featured Venom, so I won't count it towards the score. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is not a good movie at all. I think my biggest problem with this movie is that the concept of a multiverse creates too many problems. Wanda wants to travel to a universe where she
Okay, but I mean, it's a Doctor Strange movie. Like, it's supposed to be like that.
be with her kids, and there's somehow this girl who can travel through universes. One thing that really bothered me right away is how Wanda seems to completely forget that Vision exists. The reason she created the Hex in WandaVision was so she can be with Vision again, but here in this movie she seems to not care about him anymore. Anyway, Wanda wants to go to a universe where she can be with her kids again, but in doing so may risk the stability of the realm and kill the Wanda in that universe. But if there are infinite universes, why doesn't she just go to a universe where her kids are orphans and she can just show up and parent them?
Because that's not part of the script, bro.
The whole plot of this movie was dumb. And then Doctor Strange kind of went on an arc of learning how to not always be the guy who needs to save the day, but the arc didn't feel earned to me at all. Apparently with other Doctor Stranges, this was a big problem, but my problem with this is that the Doctor Strange we know never causes big problems. So he needs to go on an arc for a flaw that he doesn't even have. So I didn't care for this arc at all. And I didn't care for the Illuminati.
Nah, that was dope. The Illuminati, that bring a lot of people. Like, they should have made him Reed Richards. Like, he was a dope Reed Richards.
Action in this movie was fine, I guess, and I'll at least give the movie credit for looking good. So overall, this movie was fine, but I didn't like it. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness scored a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with an 85% audience score.
See?
On IMDb, the movie scored a 6.9 out of 10. The movie did end up grossing $955 million at the box office, one of the highest grossing MCU movies since Endgame. There has been nothing from this movie that was continued on in any way. We have yet to see Doctor Strange return, we have yet to see Wanda return, and we have yet to see America Chavez return. Doctor Strange is not scheduled to return in Avengers Doomsday, but he is supposed to return in the Avengers movie after that, Avengers Secret Wars. The one post-credit scene of note features Charlize Theron as Clea, and we have yet to see a follow-up on this, so no point here. Moon Knight is weird as hell, but I kinda like it.
Nah, the Moon Knight shit was dope. I like this shit. The way they did it, it was dope.
MCU has never, in my opinion, gotten this weird. I mean, sure, we've seen weird shit, but we've never had as weird of a character. So Oscar Isaac basically plays two people at once, and that's awesome. I like how this show took the chance to explore people who are mentally unstable and put them in a lead role. The show also
and the character, the costume was fire. Both costumes. The one with the tuxedo and the Moon Knight original.
has an aura of mystery in its first episode. I remember watching this for the first time and thinking to myself, what the hell is going on? It hooked me right from the start, and most good shows need to do that. I do feel the show dragged a bit, but not too much. One thing that was pretty cool was that the show took its time to establish the mythology, which was quite whack. I just love the costume designs of everything going on here, and the cinematography at times was really neat. Overall, Moon Knight's a cool show. Moon Knight scored an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with an 88% audience score. On IMDb, the series scored a 7.3 out of 10. Now, the legacy of this show is pretty simple. Nothing here has continued on in any way. We have yet to see Moon Knight or anyone else return. Marvel has said they have plans on Moon Knight returning, but not in the next Avengers movie. I won't consider this post-credit scene a tease for anything.
They should bring her back in Secret Wars. Not because the next Avengers movies is with Doom. It's gonna be all powerful people, like super powerful people. He has powers, but you know what I mean.
Count. Thor, Love and Thunder.
Garbage. Straight garbage.
Is this the worst of Phase 4? Probably. Talking about this movie makes me sad. I'll start off by mentioning what I liked about the movie. I actually thought Jane's story was okay. She was quite likable in this movie. She had a serviceable story, and her ending was mildly impactful. Gore was also okay at best. He looked cool, but his motivation was dumb. So Gore wants to find this magic sword so he can use a magic wish to get revenge on all the gods because he blames them for the death of his daughter. But how about instead of using your wish for evil, just use the wish to get your daughter back? Right away from the beginning of this movie, when we learned there was a wish, I asked myself this question. So considering the whole plot,
yeah, that makes no sense. It's like you're grieving so much about your daughter. Why don't you just fucking wish her back and forget anything happened?
this movie was built off Gore being an idiot, I found it hard to enjoy the movie. But of course, we need to talk about Thor and how they absolutely ruined his character.
Yo, not for nothing, the fight scenes on Thor, Love and Thunder, horrible. All of them. All of them.
sequence shows Thor regressing back to his worst self, and it undoes the whole point of every Thor movie preceding this. He accidentally destroys an entire city and he doesn't seem to care. Also, he's just an idiot in this movie, like when he uses the Bifrost in the middle of a damn building. So Thor's arc in this movie is about learning how to love again, but somehow the way to pay that off is to give him a daughter? It's nonsensical. Thor sucked in this movie, and of course, the humor in this movie was also way overblown. I've never seen a movie that tried to be funny so badly and failed this miserably. This movie is the prime example of
Now you can't front though. The Rock dude, he's funny on all the movies. Every way he comes out, he's funny.
what can happen when you put humor over story. The last point I want to make is that the side characters all sucked as well. Valkyrie and Korg were useless. Korg in this movie was so unfunny that I actually grew to hate him. This movie is the worst MCU
Nah, how he's gonna say that? He's the funniest one.
movie in the multiverse era without question. Thor Love and Thunder scored a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes along with a 76% audience score.
Wow.
What bums gave this movie a good review? On IMDb, the movie scored a 6.1 out of 10. The movie grossed a respectable $760 million at the box office. There has been no continuation of this movie besides Valkyrie cameoing in the Marvels. Thor is of course scheduled to return in the Avengers Doomsday, but there is no word on the rest of the cast. Thor Love and Thunder did have a post-credit scene teasing the debut of Hercules, and shocker, we have yet to see him again, so no points for this movie. Miss Marvel is one of the
Garbage. This right here, to me, personally, my personal opinion, to me, this was the downfall right here. Phase 4, Miss Marvel. Once they started doing this, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Wakanda Forever, all this shit was trash.
is one of the more underrated MCU projects. I really enjoyed this show, and it is probably the best MCU
Me and this dude, we disagree on a lot.
show in Phase 4. The reason why I like this show so much is simply that I like Kamala a lot. She was sweet, funny, charismatic, and had a powerful origin story of learning about her heritage. One thing I must commend this show for is how it portrayed the Islamic culture. When a show or movie focuses on a certain religion or a certain race, it is easy for said story to put down other cultures or races to
And then in the comic books, she doesn't have no fucking bracelet. That's her power from within. You understand? And they made it about a bracelet. Come on, man.
her culture or race seem better, but Miss Marvel doesn't do that. It highlights this Muslim family and shows the strengths of their culture. So that was something I really appreciated about this show. The other thing that I liked is that Kamala is just a typical high school kid. The supporting characters were also relatively cool, and I liked when the story explored the rest of the world and showed us more of the culture. The only thing about this show that I found to be rather weird was Kamala's obsession with Captain Marvel. Not so much because Captain Marvel is unlikable, but because in universe, how do people know who Captain Marvel is? She showed up in Endgame and then probably bailed right after. Maybe she did stuff between Infinity War and Endgame, I guess? But if so, one simple line could have explained that. Overall, a really fun show and I'd watch it again. Miss Marvel scored a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes along with an 80% audience score. On IMDb, the show scored a 6.2 out.
Yeah, that's more fair. But Rotten Tomatoes and the audience gave it a la. Wow. I didn't like that show like that.
Quite the jarring difference between IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Kamala did obviously return in the Marvels, along with a handful of Kamala's family. In the Marvels, Kamala did tease a Young Avengers team.
See? The Young Avengers shit.
That's not happening. The post-credit scene for the show is kind of a cheat. It is literally just a scene from the Marvels, so obviously it was paid off in the Marvels. But I gotta be fair and count it. She-Hulk is not a good show at all, but honestly, I don't hate it.
I don't hate it because of the simple fact that Titana and somebody else, they looked okay. And on top of that, the CGI on her, were okay. I don't like her right there as the character. You understand? Because they try to make it too funny and too feminist.
I enjoyed parts of it. Sue me. People are just way too harsh on Jen. Back in the day when the show was coming out, almost all the reviews were from people who had only watched the first episode. If you just watched the first episode, then yeah, Jen's pretty annoying. But people seem to forget that characters go on arcs and sometimes they begin the show with a major flaw. Bruce warns Jen of all these different things, and Jen just ignores him. But throughout the show, she slowly starts to realize that Bruce was right about a lot of shit, and she starts to humble herself. I think I also have a bit of a soft spot for Daredevil.
That was crazy too. They bring in Daredevil just to hype this shit up.
Appearance. If there's anyone who can help Jen balance the life of a lawyer and a superhero, it's Matt Murdock. But I will say this, I hated the ending and it ruined the whole show. For the first half, I was kind of enjoying it, not because it was good, but because it was something different. But once Jen met the Disney Plus home screen and went to meet a robot version of Kevin Feige, I was incredibly disappointed. Just because the show pokes fun at how it doesn't have a climactic moment for its story,
Nah, that was the bad part about it.
doesn't now mean I'm happy there was no climactic moment. I've heard that people say this was true to the comic origins and they love that, and while I could admire the willingness to supposedly stay true to the comics, I can't say I liked it at all. Certain types of story techniques work in certain ways. The MCU to me was a cinematic universe that had its own story and its own canon. Yes, there were things that contradicted each other over time here and there, but it was still one universe. What am I supposed to think of Jen going to Kevin Feige's office and the Marvel Studios? That was really dumb. This show
Yeah, that was like some real third dimension shit, like Deadpool.
again, it was not good. Many of the episodes felt directionless. I just didn't hate Jen, and I also find it really funny that such a middling show got such a strong hatred from fans. She-Hulk Attorney at Law scored an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with an abysmal 32% audience
Wow.
score. The show
Nobody
also
liked
scored a pathetic 5.2 out of 10 on IMDb. This show has not had a continuation of any kind, and I think that's for the best. Marvel probably regrets that the show even exists because it had such bad press. Also, the way the show ended, I don't know how you can continue it.
You know what's crazy? Even the She-Hulk comics, they never took off. Like they sold just enough to keep press, but they never took off.
The show had a post-credit scene where Emil was freed by Wong. I mean, this technically counts as a tease, so I'm gonna count it towards the tally. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a good movie. I'm surprised it's not regarded in a better light. I think the movie did a good job of giving Shuri an arc and giving Namor some development as well. Namor is an empathetic villain.
See, me and this guy, we don't see eye to eye. Wakanda Forever was trash. Quote me on that. It was garbage. Storyline was garbage. The whole Namor mm, with no physical like pro. Nah, he was horrible, bro. He was horrible. He was a good character, but he needed to go to the gym for real.
Clearly a morally gray character. When it
And then Suri, I don't buy her as like breaking niggas down. You understand what I'm saying?
protecting his people, he seems like a good and noble king, but the way he wants to handle the rest of the world is clearly evil. But the most important thing we understand is why he has these beliefs, and the movie explains that to us. Now, I did find his motivations to be rather weak. Since his people were once forced out by colonizers like 500 years ago, he has a strong hatred for the surface world, but maybe it's just me. It seems like he was forced to move to a much better place. The underwater
Nah, the storyline, everything was horrible.
of Talocan was beautiful and everyone seemed really happy to be there and they were thriving. I get it's not that simple, but if the writers wanted us to really feel for Namor and his people, I think it would have been more effective if they had this wonderful home on land and then they were forced to move to this underwater city that really stunk. This way it's far easier for us to empathize with Namor's hatred for the surface. But I will say this, I love it when the motivations of both the hero and the villain are rather similar. Shuri is dealing with loss and she understands the pain of losing one of her own.
Nah, I don't like that character. I don't know why. I don't know why. I feel like she doesn't look tough. She doesn't like. She doesn't like. She doesn't have power. You understand what I'm saying? Like in my mind, like I don't believe that she could beat anybody. Wakanda, or no Wakanda. Black Panther, or no Black Panther. You understand?
Namor's whole goal is to protect his people. So if there's anyone in the story who
She look
would
weak. Look.
understand Namor the best and spare him in the end, it would be Shuri. She knows that feeling of loss and that feeling of wanting to protect her family, so she's able to relate to Namor because he's protecting his family too. This is what makes a great character dynamic, and it's the biggest reason why I enjoyed the movie. This movie is also visually far better than the first Black Panther movie. I didn't
You hear this dude? This dude is bugged out. I'm sorry, my guy. It's better than part one. Nah, I know you and me are not on the same page. You must not be a comic book collector. You must not be a fan because, yo, how you gonna say this movie is better than the first one? Man, somebody add this guy.
other complaints other than that the movie was probably a bit too long. A lot of the American stuff could have easily been cut out. But overall, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a pretty good movie, and I'm glad they were able to tell this good of a story without T'Challa. Black Panther Wakanda Forever scored an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, along with a 93% audience score. On IMDb, the movie scored a 6.6 out of 10. Black Panther Wakanda Forever managed to gross $859 million at the box office. We have yet to see any continuation of anything from this
She'll
movie.
come out.
Riri Williams did get her own show with Ironheart, but a lot of people seem to hate that
Oh my God, I hated that show. Another show, garbage. That show was just like some. Oh my God, they were just here there. The only good thing about that show is that they introduced Mephisto. Besides that, garbage. But the thing with Siri and all that shit, garbage. She's gonna come out in Doomsday.
and I don't know if we'll ever see more of her again. Shuri and Namor will, however, be returning in Avengers Doomsday. The one post-credit scene of this movie is a tease for the future T'Challa of the MCU. This probably won't happen for a long time, so for the time being, it gets 0 points. Now, you may ask me about What If. To be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the first
Now the what ifs was dope.
episode way back when, and I was like, yep, this isn't for me. I've heard people say they like it, and that's awesome. The concept just doesn't interest me at all. What If has continued to get more seasons since season 1, so I guess it's fair to say it was a success. But overall, the fourth phase of the MCU was a major disappointment. So many of its stories went nowhere, and even the ones that did get a de facto
And even with the what if story, they try to intertwine it with the movies and the series, and it was like a big downfall. And what I'm telling you is that once you start doing this whole female power shit, what happens is you're changing the narrative from the original comics, and that's messing up the storyline. And then what happens is us original comic collectors, we don't like stuff like that, and you end up losing fans like that. And then who are the true fans? Parents, the fathers of the kids that are watching now. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, that's enough for me. I hope you like my video. Make sure you like, subscribe, share. I got topics of all topics. I just look at videos, man. You already know. Vidwon reacts. Peace.